Welcome to the Just Be a Man podcast, where we offer commentary from a man's perspective. We appreciate you guys for being here this evening and invite you to follow us on our various social media platforms. Again, that is Just Be a Man. Tonight, we have our usual cast of characters with the exception of one. Our boy Mike is with his family, spending some quality time. So we bid him, well, and hope everything's going good with the family. But in the meantime, we have our boy Chuck, Stefan,
Yo.
not Mike, but Wade, and yours truly, Charles. And our topic for this evening is something that men rarely openly discuss with one another, and that is fear. We are going to share our greatest fears from a man's perspective. Now, I did do a little research prior to this podcast and, read a few articles on fear, things of that nature. And one of the articles that I ran into listed the 5 biggest fears for men as follows: fear of failing, fear of being incompetent, fear of being weak or perceived as being weak, fear of being irrelevant, and fear of looking foolish. So
God, that sounds like the sitting president.
hey, how about that?
But unfortunately, he is all of those. But
Indeed. But we digress. So, gentlemen,
yes.
Do you agree with these? Can you relate to any of these more so than others? What are some of your greatest fears? Let's open up and share. And let's start with you, Chuck.
I can relate to every one of those. Every one of those is one of my fears. Not biggest, but they are definitely one of my fears. My biggest fear for me is more personal. It's more family related. My biggest fear, truthfully, and this is probably selfish, is something happening to my wife. I've said this, this is one of the prayers that I say is, God forbid anything happen, but, take me first. I don't ever want to know a day without my wife.
Right.
So that is actually my biggest fear. And, then of course, wife and kids, I should say, but, family, then, I've got some other personal fears. Drowning is a huge one for me. I had a bad experience when I was little. Now I'm an Aries. I'm a water baby. I've spent, I grew up on the water for the most part. Family from Miami, all that. But I went to go visit one of my uncles in Brigantine, New Jersey, I believe it was, and he had a boat, and I was out there on the pier with my my cousin, and I was leaning on the boat, and the boat moved as I was leaning on it, and I fell into the water. Well, I fell into the water, the boat moved back. So now I'm trapped under the pier and under the boat, and I'm young. I didn't have the strength to move the boat, and it was just, I was drowning. And just as the light from the surface began to get dim, my cousin reached down and yanked me up. Literally, it was the 70s, so I guess by my hair, he lifted me out of the water.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, and ever since then, and then I had some other experiences with water, but from then on, I wasn't a water dude. So now, even in my 50s now, traveled all over the world, beaches all over the place. And for the most part, I'll sit in the water. I don't go in beyond my knees. It's got to be water that I can see through for the most part, because my fear of drowning is up here. I still love the water. I still boat. I still fish. But even when we go out and I'm actually planning a fishing trip for us, you'll see that I take like precautions beforehand. I'm the guy that's got on the life vest and the beacon on the shoulder and all that other stuff just in case we go down. But it was very traumatic, and I was young then, so I'm in my 50s now, so I've carried that weight with me all these years.
I
And
get it.
yeah, you know, it's a very real thing, and that's one of my biggest fears is drowning.
Yeah, I could definitely relate to that. I had a near drowning experience myself when I was young, so I still carry that burden with me today. You know,
Yeah,
so I'm very comfortable at the pool, but when it comes to the beach and
hmm,
those currents having the ability to pull you out, bro,
yeah,
I get real nervous when it comes to that. So,
yeah,
and I know how to swim, but I'm still real nervous when it comes to the water. So I can
hmm,
definitely relate to that. How about you, Wayne?
I think I would go like Chuck with the family thing. So my situation is obviously a little bit different than my situation, a little bit different, right? And so I'm a divorced father of two kids. So to me, the list that you read off, Charles, about the items that people that men most fear, failure. So I've been divorced for about 5 years now, and so my ex-wife has primary custody. So although my kids are still developing, they're still in school, high school, college, whatever, my fear is anything that happens to them while I'm not being around. I feel like that's my concern. That's my fault. That would be real heavy on me.
Hmm.
So obviously, the prayers that I have are for these kids to be successful in whatever it is they do, and that they're successful members of society kind of things. But if anything happens while I'm not in since I haven't been in that household, I take that real serious, and that's a big deal to me. And so I don't really know how to quantify that, or there's nothing I can do to control it. So that's why it's such a fear. It's just like, you don't want to get no crazy phone calls, and you're like, what the hell, and you just start blaming yourself. And I know people say, well, you can't do this, you can't do that, but I'm just telling you, I would absolutely blame myself if something like that happened. So that's my absolute biggest fear by far.
I get it.
Um, if I would say some other fears, they would be family related, to lose someone who's really important to you. I have elderly people in my family. I have a lot of relatives that I would be really, really hurt if something happened to them. And I guess it's the powerlessness, right, that you mentioned earlier. It's not being able to control, I don't want to say control, but that you can't do anything to help a situation, that you just have
Hmm.
to accept what happens. So yeah, that's pretty fearful for me.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Stefan.
I tell you, I'm gonna go in a completely different direction. As most people know, I'm retired Army and have been in for 22 years. Back in '88, while I was still in college, we went down to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, for an exercise as part of a camp. We're down there about 6 weeks. Well, about week number three, we're out in the field, doing Army type stuff. A huge storm came in. I mean, just lightning, thunder. And they basically, the instructor said, hey, put your weapon over there, take all metal off, all that good stuff. And lightning, by the time we did it, lightning struck only maybe 5 feet from where we were standing. And that's one of my fears, of being struck by lightning. Unfortunately, my wife just lost a family member on Friday that was struck by lightning in South Jersey.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, and so once she brought that up, it was like, oh my God, that's one of my fears. Lightning is something I can't control.
Hmm.
You know,
right,
another one of my fears, and Chuck has brought it up, is rip currents. And I think even Charles, you talked about it, rip currents. There's a park right here in Maryland off of Croon Road
mhm,
that there's signs that clearly say, do not swim here. Because of rip currents, and you look at the river, it looks nice and calm and everything. Like, oh yeah, you can swim across, but it was like every year for about 5 years, somebody would try to swim the river, and the rip current would catch them and take them downriver and kill them. So, that's my other fear, or at least one of my other fears. And the last big fear I have is something I can't control either. When out in the water, are there sharks in the water? Are there barracudas in the water? Things that I can't really,
Right.
can't really
Water's
fight. You
yeah,
know,
water's funny.
Yeah, exactly. Especially the ocean. So, we're jet skiing down in Mexico City. We're about a half mile off the coast. And I'm like, man, I'm a long way out here, and there were barracudas in this portion of the water, and I'm sure there were sharks, none that would probably try to scoop me up, but it's just like, man, I can't control anything out here, so those are fears.
Yes.
Yeah.
So real quick, it's funny you brought that up, Steph, because I was just thinking that, sometimes I've been out on vacation in different places and you do that water skiing thing, right? So you're out there in the boat, and once you fall, you got to wait for them to come, and you just
Yeah,
out there. You just out there
yeah.
just dangling. Just have to keep the tips out and just kind of wait for that boat to come around. It never come around fast enough. So
Yeah,
I'm just saying,
yeah,
you don't know what's under you. That's all I'm
right,
saying.
right.
Yeah. Yeah, that water's no joke, man. I can tell you, as far as my fears are concerned, I can relate to everything that you guys said, especially about the water, losing family members, especially my wife, my children, things of that nature. But to go a step further, I have this real dreaded fear of being violated as a man. And I can tell you the way it manifests itself. I had shared this story with Wayne one time. A few months before COVID hit, I'm sitting in the gym and in the sauna. And one of the things I like to do after a workout is go into the sauna for about a half hour, relax my muscles, so on and so forth. But generally, when I'm in there, there may be one or two other guys in there, and that's it. And I'm cool. This particular day, I was in there alone. And again, I like to sit for 30 minutes. So after about 5, 6 minutes, all of a sudden, guys just started trickling in, one by one, one by one. Next thing you know, I look up and the sauna is full of dudes, right? And suddenly I felt like I was about to be the lead actor in a prison rape. I literally thought it felt like these guys were about to turn on me and I was about to be that dude getting violated in a prison cell. That's what it felt like. So it wasn't even 15 minutes, bro. I was out of that sauna. That I was gone because again, there was something in me that I felt this anxiety, just being around these guys, man. I'm like, nah, I'm sorry, and I'm not a punk. Don't get me wrong. I could definitely defend myself, but when it comes to being outnumbered, that it just, that thought just completely took over me and I had to walk out of that sauna, man. Have you all ever, can you relate to any of that?
Being
Well,
outnumbered, yeah.
Well, not
I feel
necessarily being outnumbered, but having that feeling of being violated as a man.
yeah, I mean, I think every dude is afraid of that. It's again, it's loss of control and being overpowered into a position you don't want to be in. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think that's real crazy. I mean, I remember you telling me about the whole sauna joint, but and I go in the sauna too. But yeah, it's after I heard that, I started thinking about it, but I hadn't thought about it before that. Thank you for that. But anyway, yeah, I don't think anybody wants to be in that position. For real, that's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, and as a tie-in, I would just say the whole notion of going to jail, it terrorizes me, especially being falsely accused of something that I didn't do, because
Yeah.
there's so many cases of that, especially in the United States, where folks just get caught up in something. It's something, wrong place, wrong time, or they fit the description, that sort of thing. And next thing you know, they're in jail. I read a story recently of this athlete who was falsely accused of rape. And now the woman has come forward and said she never did it. But we all know what happens to rapists in jail. We know to people that are accused of rape and child molestation and things of that nature. They themselves just have a horrific way to go behind bars. And so to be that guy going to jail falsely accused, that to me is something that literally at times I've actually woken up out of my sleep in a nightmare, because I've had sort of that vision. And so that is something that, to me, it shakes me to my core. It really does.
Hey, Charles, you remember that you and I were talking earlier this week. You said one of your other fears was getting your ass beat in front of your kids or in front of your wife.
Boom. Public humiliation. Yes. That is another fear that I have, is that, again, and it goes back to being violated. I think, Wayne, you mentioned it earlier, not being in control and being in a situation where there's nothing you can do as a man to defend your family or to defend yourself, whether it's a home invasion type situation, any of that. To me, it's something that is unfathomable, to be in that type of situation. I just don't know what I would do, man. If I was ever violated to that degree, or my wife was violated and I was completely helpless to do anything, I don't know if I could live with myself after that.
It's crazy. It's crazy. I mean, we use the word being in control, but that's not meaning that we're trying to be controlling. It's just that being at a loss, being powerless, just have to sit back and take whatever.
Right.
So it's nothing. I think as a man, you don't want to be in that position ever in anything, whether it's in your job, in your family, or anywhere. You don't want to be where you feel like you just have to take whatever crap is given to you. So yeah, that's a really tough position. And Charles, when you talk about jail, there's nothing nice about that, right? And if you think that that's got to be terrorizing, to be in a small confined area completely locked up. It's got to be terrifying. And then to be there being wrongly accused, it's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah, especially after spending your whole life trying to do the right thing.
Come on, man. You hear about all these cases with dudes like they found some DNA and after 25 years, 40 years, they've been exonerated. Like, really?
Right.
Really?
Right, exactly.
Like that, how do you can't repay that. That's, the horrors you've seen in those years? Come on.
Yeah.
So what do you think, Chuck? I mean, what other fears have manifested themselves in your life can you think of?
Well, I tell you what, I didn't even think about this when you brought it up, which is the public humiliation, and that's actually a big one for me. I mean, and it can be something as small as being in a grocery store and you're paying for your items and you give them your card and it's declined because you didn't transfer the money, or because you got money, but what's going on? Cards declined. It happened to me a couple of times. One, it was the fraud protection kicked in. I was losing my mind. I didn't know what was going on. I knew I had money in the bank. I'm at the front and I'm swiping. Ladies, and after the third decline, ladies looking at me like, sir, I'm like, I don't like to be embarrassed in public. I just don't, especially when I do everything to make sure that I'm in the right, or I'm doing the right thing. So yeah, I'm actually glad you brought that one up. That's a big one for me.
Yeah, that's a good one.
But I alluded to family early on. But a really big one for me, especially, I hate to say it, it's 2020, and I swear, I hate to have to say this, but one of my biggest fears also is my son walking out that door and never coming home. My son, hey, Dad, I'm going for a walk. He told me today he was going for a walk. And, I didn't have to talk with him again because we've had it so many times. I know he knows it backwards and forwards and how to, speak with the police and all this good stuff. But it doesn't go away. Every time my black son walks out of my front door just to walk around the neighborhood that I spent a shit ton of money for him to live in, to be safe, I worry about him not coming back in the door at least the same way as when he left. And in 2020, it's unbelievable.
Yep, that's real.
I'm sorry, it's not unbelievable. It shouldn't be happening. It just shouldn't
Disgusting.
be. But that's a huge fear for me. My son went to the movies a little while back before this whole COVID thing hit. And hey, Dad, I'm going to the movies with my friends. So of course, where are you going? When are you gonna be back? All that. So he calls me and says, I'm looking at the time. I'm like, the movie should have been over a while ago. What's going on? So I figured, the movie's over. Wanted to hang out with his friends. Cool. So he calls me and says, hey, Dad, I'm ready to be picked up. Okay, cool. where are you? And he said, well, my friends are all gone. I'm waiting on you. Huh? So I'm now in full panic mode. Why? Here's my black son loitering. Okay.
Right.
So any police officer that rolls up on him, hey, what are you doing? Shopping center. You're not supposed to be loitering, whatever. That's the first thing going through my mind. So I'm on the phone with my son. I ask him where he is, and he tells me, I said, here's what you do. You go to Wegmans shopping center. You go inside to the, what is that, the food court or wherever the seating is in the food court. Do not go to the back. Don't go to the middle. You go right to the front and you sit right there in plain view. And you sit there and you wait for me. You don't talk to anybody. You don't engage unless you are engaged. Obviously be polite and do. And I'm going through all this stuff with him. And he is just, okay, Dad. Okay, Dad. So I get there. And I'm panicked. And he can't understand. I had to tell him, son, listen to me. You don't have the luxury to do that.
Mm-hmm.
The friends that he was with, it was a multicultural cast. You know, see an Asian kid, white kid, black kid. I mean, you know, you can't do that, son. And I had to explain it to him. And it broke my heart. I was fighting back tears. And he was just, and his face was just, why? I'm just trying to live, man. Why? And son, what I'm trying to tell you is there's a certain segment of this society that just doesn't want you to live.
Mm.
And it's because of that we have to take these precautions. So yes, that's one of my biggest fears, is that my young black son, when he walks out that door, every day, every time, that he may not come home.
Wow. Yeah, that's big, Chuck. And yeah, we could definitely all relate to that for sure. Now, how about our own personal experiences with police? You know, how do you feel when those lights are flashing in your rearview mirror? How about you, Wayne? I mean, you had that scenario recently. Am I not mistaken?
All right. Well, since we're talking about it, yeah, that happened today. I was allegedly speeding. Allegedly.
In Virginia.
Hey, let's not get personal.
In Virginia.
Where it happened is irrelevant. I'm just saying, dude got behind me, and he told me I was doing 86 and a 55, something crazy like that.
Of course, he was lying.
I don't know. You know, I yeah, of course he's lying. I mean, so anyway, but as Charles was just alluding to, even as an adult, even as a person who's been pulled over a time or two before, it never gets easier, right? You just kind of feel like, yo, you don't know. Like, you listen to the news, you don't know who's about to come up to your door.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I pulled over, you know, it's daytime. It's not night. It's on a highway. It's not, you know, nowhere crazy. But you don't know. Roll my windows down, turn the car off, just have my license out already. And, you know, just see what happens. You know, just don't say nothing crazy. I ain't saying nothing, hoping he ain't saying nothing crazy. But yeah, it's just it's not the whole event as it unfolded today. It's just seeing those lights behind you. You're like instantly shook. You're like, oh damn.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what it is. I mean, I think we're old enough and we know how to deal with this situation enough to not be completely frightened, but you still never know who's coming to your door. Is it somebody who's got a problem already or not? So
Right.
you just try not to be that statistic. So yeah, that happened today.
Allegedly.
No, it really happened today. The crime was alleged.
Got it. Well, I tell you, Charles, one of my fears back in the day before the cell phone age, you know, where everyone has a cell phone and we don't have that issue, was breaking down in an unknown area.
Ooh, okay.
You know, and having to make that walk a mile or 2 or 5 miles to find someone to use their payphone, or even knock on someone's door. Hey, I broke down. Can I use your phone to call for help? Because back in the day, that was a huge fear, especially on some of these country roads, because you could easily, you know, pop a tire or hit a deer, or, a car just decides it just wants to die. Now we have cell phones. It makes it a little easier. And we can reach out as long as we have a signal. But, that was a big fear of mine growing up specifically until about, 2002 is when people started getting cell phones.
But what was the fear? What were you afraid of? I mean, aside from breaking down, what specifically were you thinking about?
Mainly the fact that I'm in an unknown area and I may not be welcomed.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically, well, shucks, anywhere in the United States, depending on where you're at. Being unwelcome is not a easy feeling. And a black man knocking on a white person's door in the middle of the night because my car broke down, that may have been rough. I may have wanted to at least stay there until the morning and try to flag someone down.
No doubt.
So that's where I stand with that.
Okay. Appreciate you sharing that. Any other thoughts on fear, guys? Anything that you haven't shared? Anything that you can think about from your childhood experiences, whether it was something that you watched on television, a movie, an experience that you had that just shook you to your core?
I mean,
shook me to my core.
Yeah. I mean, just something that you experienced, man. I could tell you, this may be a bit funny, and I think it ties into something that I spoke about earlier, but have the three of you seen the movie Deliverance?
I haven't seen it, but I know of it. I know.
Oh man, let me tell you, it's about these guys that basically go out on a camping trip. It's a group of friends, and they run into some hillbilly, redneck, the worst kind of guys you could possibly run into while you're out in the woods somewhere. And long story short, these guys proceed to violate these gentlemen in ways that men shouldn't be violated. No one should be violated. Men, women, animals, etc. And one scene in particular is something that still is sort of a flashpoint for me today. So much so that I'm not that camping guy. I'm not the guy that's going to be roaming into the woods. And I'm just out there for any possibility to occur. You know what I'm saying? So, if you get the opportunity, matter of fact, I don't even know if you want to watch it. It's an old movie, had Burt Reynolds in it. It was made back in the 70s, but there are a couple of scenes in that movie, man, that shake me to this day. I'm telling you.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about, we talked before about the police, prison. There's a bunch of prison movies that are like, it's just crazy stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you don't just feeling that you're confined in this place, and we're watching a movie that's just a couple of hours. This is a 24-hour a day thing.
Yeah.
And all kinds of groups and stuff that everybody's trying to position themselves however they need to be positioned. That's got to be completely, that's terrorizing. Like you said, Charles, scared to death of having to go to prison.
Mm-hmm.
That's some crazy stuff. So
Yeah.
Any of those prison movies, and even if you see some of these movies where you see how people dealt with racism we're not even like the 60s, 50s, we don't have to go back to slavery. Like just some of these things that people had to endure. These movies are like, I don't know if it's so much fear, but they definitely bring up a lot of anger. But the fear part of it is that could actually happen. That this stuff is not like made up. This isn't science fiction. This is real. Mm-hmm. And someone could just be hung just because they felt like hanging you. I mean,
this brings up
crazy.
I'm sorry, real quick. This brings up a true story, and Charles, I think you might remember this. We're talking about real fear, and Charles's issue or the thing he brought up was being falsely accused and incarcerated. But not only, how about being arrested, put in jail, not just jail, but solitary confinement for 730 days. The whole time you're telling everybody, hey, no due process. What's going on? Can I call my family, lawyer, whatever, this, that, and the other? Nothing. There was a gentleman who was arrested, I believe it was in New York, and I believe he was in Rikers Island. He was arrested for his backpack. I don't know what was so illegal about it. Now, mind you, I'm doing this from memory, so I don't have all the details. But I'll try to look it up, and maybe we can post something afterwards if people are interested. But this is directly to what Charles speaks to. This young man was arrested. He was never charged. He was never formally sentenced. Yet he sat in jail, not just jail, but solitary confinement for, I believe it was like 720, 730 days. When he was finally addressed, if you will, and I guess upon his release or whatever, I mean, he was mentally tortured. So once he was released, he killed himself. Now, I don't know if that was immediately upon release or sometime after his release, but the bottom line is he was so mentally tortured and devastated
I think I know what you're talking
that he
about.
killed, right,
Yep,
that he
yep,
killed
yep,
himself.
yep.
But this is what happens to us. So what Charles said is so valid, is so real, and this young man, he's not the only one. There's hundreds. This is why we march. There are people out there because there are stories like this all over this country.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the
So
gentleman that you talk about is Khalif Browder.
yes,
And there's actually, his story is on Netflix. So if you have the opportunity to check it out, it's really heart-wrenching what this
It
kid
is.
had to go through.
It is. I was just about to say, I believe they made a documentary about it. So yeah, thank you for that. But yeah, that's that. I just wanted to bring that up because if for anyone that's listening or watching this and you're wondering about some of the stories, that's one that you can go to. And, and I guarantee you, if you just Google that name, and you'll start to see that there are other names and other stories like that. So when we're talking about our biggest fears as Black men, you better believe that is one of them.
So
Indeed.
if I just say something real quick. So, before we talked about not being in control or feeling powerless and things like that, I think that is kind of the basis of all of these fears that we're talking about, right? All of them are based upon that because the ideal is someone can take your freedom, someone can take your life, someone can take everything that you have, and you can't do anything about it for one reason or another. That example you just gave, you have somebody who's in prison falsely or correctly, it doesn't matter. This person did not get the proper judicial process that he was
Exactly.
supposed to. And so these
Exactly.
things happen. These things happen way more often than they should. So I think that one of the reasons that we're having all these different uprisings and all these different rallies and marches is because other groups outside of these minority communities are actually starting to see it. Like they've just, I don't know, maybe there's just too much going on before, their life was too busy, they didn't see it. They're seeing it now. And I think that's the difference. So there's a lot of fear out there, and it's tough. It's not as easy as people think it is. It's tough out there.
Indeed. Well, we're going to start to wrap this thing up. But before we do, obviously, we're in the midst of a pandemic. Folks are dying. Folks are losing their homes, losing their income, things of that nature. Do you have any specific fears in connection with COVID-19?
Well, go ahead, Chuck.
Well, same thing from everyone, man. That someone that I love, someone that I care about, you guys, your family, my family, that they contract it and they don't survive from it. That's the biggest fear, right? I mean, it's a pandemic. We want to make sure that everybody is safe, and we survive this. So we got to take care of each other. Wear your masks. Social distancing, and do what we can to protect each other. That's all we can do.
I'll tell you, my fear is giving COVID-19 to my elderly parents. And I've had that discussion with my wife. Of course, they've lived a long life and I'm blessed, but I don't want to be that guy that passes it on to them because I don't think I'll ever forgive myself.
You won't.
So that's my big fear with COVID-19.
Yeah, that's real.
So for me, I'm looking at
any closing remarks, Wayne?
Well, I was just going to say, can you hear me? Hello?
I think we lost Wayne. I think he froze.
Yeah, it looked like we have some technical difficulty. Okay, he's
There
back.
he is.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, we can
Yes,
hear you
Yes,
now.
sir.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. So for me, I'm gonna look at it a little bit differently. My situation is I'm looking at the economy and the financial situation. So for me, I haven't been working for quite a while, and I'm okay right now. But the thing is, you don't know how long you got to be okay for.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a little bit. There's some fear there, right? You don't know. Is it 3 more months, 6 more months? You don't know. So that's a little bit of fear right there. And then I think the other thing is around the economy is I think the economy is way worse than people know. I think it's way worse than people know or think. I think there's enough distractions that are going on out there for the COVID-19, from the just civil unrest and just all these other things, the upcoming election, all these things that people aren't looking at the bottom line. And they're not going to see, like, when, if there's like a magic cure for all these things tomorrow, you still got to deal with this economy, and it's busted. It's busted. And I think people have no idea. You got 30 million people without a job, because just keep in mind, all these jobs ain't coming back. They just ain't coming back. So it ain't like that once you got a cure, you got these 30 million people back employed. It's not going to work that way. There's industries, there's businesses that are shutting down. You hear about the airline industry, they're cutting tens of thousands of jobs. You're hearing about the restaurants and retail, they're closing down left and right. So I think the economy is a big deal. And once we get out of this pandemic, and we're going to roll right into a financial crisis that's going to be crazy.
Yep.
Yep. Very well said, gentlemen. Well, I appreciate everyone sharing their fears from a man's perspective. I think this has been very good information. The transparency hopefully has helped someone out there that's listening to us. But why don't we just go ahead and transition over to our Drop the Mic segment. And for our audience members who may be joining us for the first time, this is our opportunity to just air anything and everything that may be on our hearts and minds at the moment. So why don't we go in the same order that we started? We'll start with you, Chuck. Drop the mic.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And folks, just keep in mind that all of this is lighthearted. Okay. My drop the mic is white people doing too much.
They put more raisin in the potato salad.
Come on, man. Look, man. Hey, in the spirit of the Black Lives Matter movement, we got people coming out of the woodworks, Caucasian folks, saying, "Hey, this stuff is wrong." Okay, granted, but then you got some people that just doing too much. I mean, the white protesters, for example, you got white kids out and their white parents on social media and stuff, and hey, come on, y'all are doing too much. I appreciate it. Your father's a racist, but I don't think they want you to destroy your family. But look, I'm in the store the other day, yesterday, as a matter of fact, and I like my T-shirts. So you would think that the T-shirt that I had on was a, Black, Lives Matter, Fight the Power T-shirt. So I'm walking through the aisle, and this lady, she says to me, "Yeah, you go, you do it." Okay, thank you. "I love your shirt and the message. You keep spreading that message." And I'm shocked. I mean, because I think she's trying to show that she's an ally, I believe, for what's going on socially, right? But I had on our Just Be a Man 2020 shirt.
Wow.
Right?
Okay.
I'm out promoting the show, and she's like, she sees the "Just Be a Man." "Yeah, you go and you keep spreading that message. Just be a man." And I'm like, lady, what does that even mean? Because the shirt didn't correlate to anything, just our show. But I think she thought it had something to do with the Black Lives Matter movement or whatever. So to show her solidarity, we're in the grocery store. So the only thing I can say was, "Okay, well, thank you. I appreciate it." But I'm like, you're doing too much. You don't even know what you're talking about, but you're so busy trying to show your support. So that's my drop the mic. Look, if you want to support at least know what you're supporting, folks. All right. I appreciate you wanting to jump on the bandwagon, but if I'm wearing a Batman shirt, I'm not. Come on, Black Lives Matter. I appreciate it, but wifey, you're doing too much. Drop the mic.
I appreciate that, Chuck. Stefan, you're up.
All right, my drop to mic is going to be a little different, but it's going to tie to the fact that some schools, and I'm talking colleges, really don't care about you. All they want to do is make money. All right, right now we've got college football season that has approached, and two of the biggest conferences, the SEC and the ACC, have decided to continue playing college football, and it's wrong. University of Alabama has 1,000 students, faculty, or staff members that have already contracted COVID-19 within the last week or so. These schools need to shut down. So I say this to say to all high school parents, as well as even some of the students that might be listening right now. If you have an opportunity, go to an HBCU, or at least look at an HBCU where you're celebrated, not tolerated. Because as far as I'm concerned, these kids are being exploited at the SEC and the ACC to play college football when we're in the middle of a pandemic. The pros still haven't figured it out. So there's no way that colleges can figure this out. Not so soon. So once again, all the students that are listening or their parents, at least look at HBCU, where I almost positive 100% are virtual online learning right now because they care about their students. So that's my drop to mic.
All right. Appreciate that, Steph. Wayne, you're up.
All right. Well, I was told not to talk about voting this time, so I won't. But
who said that?
But I will go back to our topic today, which was fear. This is one that I didn't bring up, and I'll keep it short and sweet. I know a bunch of you can relate to when you were a young kid and you were you knew you did something wrong, you knew you was out too late, you knew you were somewhere you wasn't supposed to be, and you tried to bring that friend home with you so you wouldn't get that ass whooping. Yeah, that's some real fear. That's some fear for your ass.
That's a fear.
Everybody knows that one. Like,
Yes,
nah. Yeah, but then when you bring your little friend home, they're like, yo, take your ass on. We got some business to take care of. So yeah, mic drop.
All right. All right.
Yeah,
well,
that's definitely a real fear.
Without a doubt. Mine centers around living your life to the fullest. And sadly, we've lost many notable people in 2020. Of course, we have the pandemic taking place. We've lost over 180,000 people in the United States alone. But in addition to that, listen to some of these names that we've lost in just 2020 alone. Kobe Bryant and his daughter Gigi, John Lewis, Curly Neal, Regis Feldman, Kelly Preston, Little Richard, Jerry Stiller, B. Smith, Betty Wright, Andre Harrell, Kenny Rogers, and of course, most recently, Chadwick Boseman, Cliff Robinson, and the list goes on and on. So the term live your life to the fullest is something that has been ringing through my head over the last couple of days, with all these names that I'm hearing about people passing away. So I decided to, look it up. And what does it mean to actually live your life to the fullest? And what I discovered is that there are 5 truths to help people live life to the fullest. Truth number 1 is that you make an impact just being present. Truth number 2, living life to the fullest is about being unapologetically yourself. Truth number 3, you don't have to take big leaps, but just one small step at a time. Truth number 4, who you are is more important than how. And then lastly, truth number 5 is regret comes from not trying. So if we really want to live our life to the fullest, Let's follow those 5 truths. Mic drop. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is our time for this evening. We thank you for joining Just Be a Man podcast. Look for us on our various social media platforms. In the meantime, we wish you peace and blessings. Good night.